Welcome to the Ramadan edition of the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Maryam Mkwanda. Behavior change is difficult in any context. We all harbor some degree of resistance to changing habits. It is common to become so familiar with a routine that it becomes a source of comfort. The late English writer Samuel Johnson once said, the chains of habit are too weak to be felt until they are too strong to be broken. So, how does one implement new behavioral changes? Let's find out. And joining me on the other side is a social worker from Islamic Careline, Shuhaida Adam, to give us some more information. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, Shuhaida, and shukran for joining me.
Wa alaikum salam. It's such a pleasure to join you on this first day of Ramadan.
Alhamdulillah, Ramadan Mubarak to you.
Ramadan Mubarak to everyone in Salam Media, to all the viewers and the listeners as well.
Alhamdulillah, shukran. So, first of all, what causes changes in behavior?
Okay, so, when we consider our behavior, like your introduction said, it's often so entrenched, it's just habit, right? And it starts becoming unconscious. Most of the times we find ourselves actually acting on autopilot. We wake up in the morning, we reach to maybe switch on a lamp or something, we do something so automatic, we don't think. We get out of bed, we go do whatever it is we do in the morning on autopilot. We engage with family members in the morning, mostly on autopilot. We get into our cars, or we go to our transport, and we somehow find ourselves at our destination without being really conscious of how we got there, what did we do on our way there. So we find often that we are on autopilot, and that autopilot can also take us through to our other behaviors. So even our interactions with people, if, for example, when we come across a challenge and there needs to be some form of conflict resolution, we may find ourselves automatically reacting in a certain way. We may flare up, we may have a bit of an angry response, we may have an aggressive response, and oftentimes we find that that's just automatic. We don't even really stop ourselves. We just engage in a way that we usually do, and we start recognizing that this is a pattern. And we often paint ourselves in that pattern also. So we start painting ourselves with that okay, now I'm the kind of person who will respond in this way. I'm an aggressive person, or I don't get involved in conflict. I will always just walk away. We start painting ourselves in that light. Other behaviors also start becoming automatic. So certain things like health behaviors, the diets that we eat, the food that we eat, it all starts becoming automatic. And in the beginning, we don't usually recognize that there's a need for change. More often than not, somebody else sort of brings it to our attention, or something happens. So if you look at the health example, right? Somebody may have a health scare. They may collapse, or they may develop a disease of lifestyle or something along those lines. And then it is brought to their attention that some form of change needs to come to you. In terms of our families, in terms of our social interactions, there may be a severe consequence. We may get into a family argument that may have a severe consequence. So then it's sometimes brought to our attention that certain behaviors of yours are destructive and they are breaking down relationships, or you may have even gotten into quite serious trouble. You may have broken an item, or you may have assaulted somebody, something like that, right? So more often than not, other people bring attention to us about our behaviors, and we then start thinking about behavior change. But by and large, most people, we quite content with just carrying on the way we are, right? So when people consider behavior change, we need to look at some elements first of what that would entail. And you spoke about resistance to change, and that's something so key, because that we can look at it as part of barriers to change, right? So elements of changing a behavior, three components. There's three components I have for the viewers and the listeners right now. But there could be more also. So the first thing we always look at is your readiness to change. Your readiness implies a willingness. So almost like an intention, and you're near, and would you like to change something? And then do you have the resources and do you have the knowledge to bring about that change? So for example, if we look at the dietary changes that somebody would need to implement, do you know what type of a diet plan you need to eat? Do you know what something that your doctor would say is suitable for somebody of your health condition, etc., right? People who are engaged in substance addiction, they would also need to bring about behavior change when they want to give up this behavior. So, what would that entail for them? Do they know if they give up this addiction, if they give up whatever substance they're using, what's going to be the physical effects on them, or what does it require? Does it require alternative medication at the same time, etc. Right? So, do you have the knowledge to bring about that change? And then the resources also. So, say we'll use our dietary example again. The resources to bring about the change. Do you have alternative foods? What is it going to take to bring about that change in terms of resources? So even in terms of resources, in terms of support. So if somebody wants to implement behavior change, so say for example, somebody they would like to develop their conflict resolution skills because they realize that when they are in conflict, it's there's an unhealthy approach. There's a lot of negative consequences to their approach to conflict, and they're unsure of where do they start. Have they considered maybe something like counseling? Have they considered going for therapeutic intervention? Have they even considered some sort of social support, just a friend or a family member who will help them through this? Okay, so the first thing we always look at is the resources and the knowledge, and then the barriers to change. So you spoke about resistance. Resistance is regarded as a barrier. So what are the things that are preventing this change? What are the things that are preventing you from implementing or from even starting to bring about some form of change, whatever this change is, right? And I'm going to speak a little bit about how do you identify what you want to change in the first place. The third element is likelihood of relapse. And relapse not only with substance abuse, not only with addiction, but in terms of any other behavior. So even if it's something where you'd like to just implement in terms of your self-development. So say, for example, you'd like to implement certain social behaviors that you think would empower you in some way. In the likelihood of a relapse, if you don't go ahead with this, if you skip a day, for example, let's say with health, if it's exercise, if you skip 2 days, you skip 1 week, you can consider it a relapse, right? And would that trigger you to go back to your former behaviors? Are you just going to quit the entire process of change? Or what mechanisms are you going to put into place to help you get back up again? So something like substance addiction, if you want to bring about change there, and if you have a relapse, what do you have in terms of support? So there's quite a lot of programs, recovery programs that will tell you to have a sponsor. You'll have somebody that you can connect with, and you contact them the minute you start having thoughts of even relapsing, and they will then be able to support you through it. Okay, so we look at the likelihood also of relapse and what's that going to mean. And if you do, because we want to be realistic, relapse and going back to comforting behaviors, it's a part of the change process also. I'm going to speak about the model of change now. But let's just look a little bit at how do you identify what behaviors do you want to change. So like I said earlier, you are quite likely to be informed by other people that certain behaviors are not working, so you would need to bring that change about. And also if you analyze, you start thinking about your behavior, analyzing your actions, assessing the consequences and the outcomes of certain behaviors that you do just on your own, and you can then start recognizing that I'm okay with this behaviors or I'm not okay with it. There's a model that starts with the pre-contemplation stage. This is a model that it helps people bring about change in their behaviors. It was actually started to help just people quit smoking, but the researchers then found that this model, you can implement it onto any different type of behaviors. It's called Prochaska's model of change, and people can just look it up if they'd like further information also, or they can contact me and we can discuss it further. I'll just give a brief overview of this model because it's found to be very effective in bringing about change. So in the first stage, the pre-contemplation stage, most people are in denial about their behavior. And in denial, just in a very automatic way, doesn't necessarily have to be active and aggressive denial. You could almost say that they're not aware of a problem. Okay, so in this, then we then ask people to sort of rethink and analyze their behavior, start just developing some form of consciousness about the effects that their behavior has on them, on the people around them. They can even draw up a list of pros and cons, and that will then give a bit more insight into the effects and types of behaviors that you actually are implementing already. And then it will give you sort of an idea of there's some sort of dissatisfaction about what's going on and what type of behaviors you have. Okay, so some people in the stage, they may feel also that because they find themselves so ingrained in certain behaviors that there's no hope for change, and they may resign themselves to certain behaviors that will always be there. So this is where people will tell you that, no, I am who I am, and everyone knows me to be a certain way, and that's just the way I am. So, people all know me, they work around it, and people accept the way I am. But we just ask, think about, there's no such a thing as being stuck in your behavior. If you really want to bring yourself out of it with the right support and with the correct resources also, we definitely have hope that you can. We hold the view that everybody has the ability to grow and change. So people can then bring that about, right? So that's just stage one. Stage two, then contemplation. So this is where you start thinking about changing a certain behavior. You start thinking about, what if I do something a bit differently? It's not a very comfortable stage for people because oftentimes it goes against everything that you know. You're very comfortable in a certain way, and now when you start thinking about change and you start thinking about, what if I do something differently? Most likely people then shut that thought down and think, no, I'm going to go back to stage one where I am who I am and I'm stuck in a certain way. According to the model, most people don't make it past stage two, where they start just thinking about something different and then they shut it down and they don't consider anything different. Okay, so in that stage, people start thinking of change as a process. They start recognizing that, okay, it's going to involve quite a bit of work. Do I have the energy for that work? And people who then go forward, they make some sort of a little commitment to actually taking on that change, taking on what it means, the energy it will require, the devotion that it will require. They have an idea that, I'd like to find out more about what this change means or how I'd like to go about it. But somehow there's a little bit of this buy-in already at this point. Okay, so if you make it past stage two into stage three is now the preparation stage. So this is where you start doing a bit more research, you build up a bit of knowledge on what this change is going to require. So if we look at maybe the health and the dietary example, people start looking at what kind of foods are they going to need, maybe exercising, maybe looking at fitness classes or gyms that surround them. People who are looking maybe at how can they, let's say, improving their spending habits. They find that they're financially quite reckless and they would like to become more responsible. So they start just looking maybe a little bit at what can they look at their bank accounts, maybe they start looking at working out a budget, they start looking at gathering as much information as they can to bring about smaller changes in preparation for the larger change. Okay, and then if you make it past this stage, and when people are comfortable now, then they feel they have enough information, they will then move on to the next stage. However, there are certain people who can also get stuck in this information gathering stage, in the preparation stage, because they start getting a lot of information and they get very caught up, especially in the age of information. They get very caught up in so much information that they're not very certain where can they start, or they find it comfortable to get as much information as they can, but they don't really go on to the next stage. So the people in this stage, they may need a little bit of a push, they may need a little bit of extra support to actually get things going. Okay,
All right,
so
Shuhaida, we're going to take a quick break. Stay with us.
and well-seasoned. Spices to tantalize your taste buds. From creative cuisines to gastronomical gourmet goodies. From exotic odors to traditional dishes, Osman's Taj Mahal have remained synonymous with quality spices and condiments. Taj Mahal rice, beans and lentils. Try our range of chili bite mixes, rose and ilachi syrup, our quick and easy biryani pack, and our traditional range of spice blends. Osman's Taj Mahal, there is no substitute for quality.
From the townships of South Africa, the refugee camps in Syria, or orphanages in Yemen, the eyes of the needy speak volumes with just one glare. We know what it's like to be at ground zero, with food essentials, clothing and blankets, fresh water portal trucks, and even on-site navigators. We use every cent to better their tomorrow. Become part of our journey to bring relief to all. Go to www.ashrafulaid.org or call us on 011-809-8181. Ashraful Aid, under the auspices of Maulana Suhail Wadi.
The Al Baraka Transactional Banking Loyalty Program puts cash back into your pocket. Earn cash back monthly on your purchases at participating butcheries when you pay with your Al Baraka debit card. Terms and conditions apply. Visit www.albaraka.co.za/loyalty or contact our customer services on 0860-225-786 or WhatsApp us on 084-786-6563. Al Baraka, your partner bank. Al Baraka Bank Limited is an authorized financial services and credit provider.
DuziMed Medicine Depot, Retail Pharmacy and Emergency Medical Depot. Conveniently situated in the DuziMed Medical Center, Corner Burger and Bosel Street, Pietermaritzburg. We provide safe, affordable and convenient medical facilities. Open till 10 p.m. every day of the year. We have a full-house clinic that operates from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m., which is run by a qualified sister. The clinic offers immunization, vaccination, wellness, general consultation, and more. Call DuziMed Medicine Depot on 033-3421-200. DuziMed Medicine Depot, your pharmacy of choice.
Salam Mia, your link to a spiritual Ramadan.
أو كيف السبيل أنت بالتحدي تصنع المستحيل.
Michaela and Shuhaida Adam. And we are talking about change. And it just occurred to me, Shahida, when you mentioned earlier about confrontation. And I was like, you know, I'm a person that does not like confrontation because I feel like I get too heated up in the moment. So instead of dealing with the situation, I'm just like, I'm not going to deal with confrontation. So I rather avoid the situation instead of dealing with it. So I guess I need to start changing my behavior there and learning how to deal with the conflict much better. So thank you, Shukran, for opening up my eyes there. And just mention a few more pointers. I'd like us to continue with this topic next week, inshallah. Because of time, we won't be able to get through some more of the points. But you may continue with what you already have now and just wrap up until we continue next week.
Okay, so I'm glad that something is sparked as quickly as this time that we're in right now. But I just would like to then highlight to your viewers and your listeners just how instantaneous change can also occur and how we can recognize some form and a need of change also. So, of course, because we are short of time, I'm not going to continue with the model because there's still 3 more stages I need to discuss. But I think it's quite important that people can recognize for now, just if they would like to also follow the model as we are talking, analyze their behavior, consider if there's something they would like to bring about change with. They can even do a pro and a con list, a pros and cons list of current behaviors, what's the impact it's having on them, what's the impact it's having on the people around them, what would change mean, what are the resources that they feel they would need, and to start gathering some knowledge about the change that they would like to bring about. Okay, so that should take them through 3 stages: the pre-contemplation, the contemplation, and the information gathering stage. Next week, we can continue on then with the next 3 stages. But I just want to actually take us a step back and recognize when we talk about people highlighting change, and we need to understand and analyze our behavior. If we choose to bring about change, always try to keep an idea of the motivation behind that change. Why do you want to go about this? What's going to be the benefit of it? We spoke a little bit about when people when they hit a snag, if they hit a relapse, and then they may just find themselves quitting. But if you have a motivation that you can go back to, and it's like a reminder that will help keep you sort of focused on the end goal. We find that it's a lot more powerful to lift yourself up also with the support that you would like and you require, but keeping in mind the motivation behind the change and the reason behind the change, and then inshallah you will bring it about also. We also want to also just inform people that these things don't happen overnight. Change is a very gradual process. It took quite a long time to get to where you are right now. So to bring about some form of change, it's also going to take quite a while. People often expect that change can happen overnight, and if it doesn't happen very quickly, they become a bit demotivated. However, recognize that it does take, it's a working process, and it does take time, and then the rewards also eventually, it's an eventual outcome. It's not just instantaneous.
All right. We have a caller from Mayfair, Uncle Ibrahim. Assalamu alaikum, Uncle Ibrahim.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh for all of you and your guests there speaking so nicely. I just wanted to remind that there was a famous man that once said, "Stay as sweet as you are. Don't let a thing ever really change you."
Yeah.
I don't know if you know that man.
No, I don't.
Nat King Cole.
I'm going to keep that in mind.
Oh, you must listen to that one. Yeah. So
right.
changing is good, but don't lose those things that make you up, that people remember for so many years and love. Don't throw those things out, even if it's some of the queer things that we have, the funny habits we have. So that is what makes us. Jeez. Assalamu alaikum.
Shukran for your comment, Uncle Ibrahim. Ramadan Mubarak to you and your family. Right, that was Uncle Ibrahim from Mayfair talking about change. And what do you think about the comment besides the Nat King Cole?
Quality lines there. It was lovely when he spoke about stay as sweet as you are. So also, change doesn't mean adapting to something that's not going to be you. Whatever change you bring about, we want it to be as natural. It has to suit you, so to say. It has to be a fit for you, and you have to be the one who's comfortable with that. And if you already have behaviors that work, that people love about you and that you like about yourself, keep it. Go with what works, and if you can only grow for the better. So recognize also the change that people want to bring about, if it's going to have beneficial outcomes, or if it's going to have non-beneficial outcomes, then we wouldn't really encourage that, as long as it has beneficial outcomes. Thank Uncle Ibrahim also for his reminder on that as well.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to lose yourself in the process. You just want to become a better person. And that's why you are changing. Shuhaida, shukran so much for your time. And we will continue with this topic on change, inshallah, next week. But for now, take care and have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Likewise. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
That was Shuhaida Adam, a social worker at Islamic Careline, talking to us about implementing new behaviors. And you heard from that beautiful comment from Ibrahim from Mayfair. Stay as sweet as you are, even if those little habits that you have that make people irritated. It's part of who you are. So if you change, don't go overboard and change. Just change for the better, change to make yourself a better person. It is 11:41. You are listening to the Mid-Morning Talk on Salam Media with me, Maryam Mkwanda. Do stay with us.